Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on in. It is time for another edition of the Sleepers series. We are here, we are back, and I am stoked to get into the tight end part of this series. We already dropped running backs. We already dropped wide receivers. We got tight ends tonight. We got quarterbacks coming up tomorrow, and we are building up to draft day, to whenever your draft day is. But we got about 3 weeks left to go until draft week really gets going. So we are excited. We are moving. My man John Landry is once again in the house tonight. John Landry, how you feeling tonight?
Honestly, I'm pretty nervous. Tight end's a pretty hard position to predict. It's the shallowest pool of them all. So hopefully we nail something this time.
Yeah, this is the one that you really gotta comb through with a fine-tooth comb, to really find what you're looking for there. There's only one or two that really stick out to you every year. Those are the low-hanging fruit. I might have grabbed one in the show, of course, for me, because I'm over the moon about them, but this is the sleeper show. So this is the show where you're trying to grab the people, the players that are going to have long-term season value, but you're not really talking about right now, and it's super, super hard with the tight end pool being as thin as it is, like you're saying, to get that. So, before we get moving on to that tonight, obviously, like and subscribe, all that stuff. Follow me on TikTok, all the different stuff that you see pop up at the bottom. But let us get into our main quick point of the evening, and that is John Landry has been confirmed by me and nobody else as an unconfirmed source for Al Breer of Sports Illustrated. So I'll go ahead and put the graphic up right here for you if you're watching on YouTube. But John Landry made his case yesterday for Damian Harris being traded away from the New England Patriots, or at least them entertaining the idea, because they favor Ramondre Stevenson and whatever they have in him. And Al Breer posted today, you can check the timestamps, our show was recorded first before the report came out. It is almost, if John obviously got a lot more in depth of it, but there's like 4 points there that John made, and it's basically verbatim what John said. So John, what do you think about being Al Breer's unconfirmed source for this? This seems pretty verbatim what you said.
I think I signed an NDA and I'm not allowed to talk about it.
John's out here making different kind of money, not letting us know on the show, but that's okay. You get your money, my friend. Let us get into some of that great analysis that John's been working on, that I have been working on, that we've been combing through, because we got a lot to get through tonight, just like every other night. We don't want to keep you here forever. So let us pour right into it, and in the spirit of taking turns, John Landry, I am going to let you take the floor first this evening with your first tight end off the board. What do you got?
Yeah, sure. First up, I got Zach Ertz. We already talked about Zach Ertz on the Draft or Pass episode. I think we both agreed that going at ADP 94, late 8th round, he's a draft. Tight end's very shallow, but Zach Ertz should be able to stand above most this year because of the opportunity he's going to be presented. Hopkins being out, at the beginning of the year, should get a nice bump in targets. I know historically he's been a top tight end. 2017, 3, 2018, 2, 2019, 4. So he's clearly a top end tight end. I know last year was kind of, or the beginning of last season and the year before that, Goddard kind of cut into his target count. But that's not the case anymore. He's a primary featured tight end on a great offense. So to elaborate that, I want to talk about Zach Ertz's last 5 games last year. Over the last 5 games, he had 50 targets. Out of 210 throws that Kyler Murray had, he had 50 targets. That's a 24% target share. That's elite status target share. That's the thing. That's the kind of numbers that Adams, that Diggs, and players you draft in the first round get that kind of target share. So I ran what his 17 game projection would have been on on his last 5 weeks, and he would have went 170 targets, 112 receptions, over 1,000 yards, and while he didn't have any touchdowns in the last 5 games, obviously that number would be a non-zero, so it would be a number greater than 0. He ended the season on 4 touchdowns anyways. But yeah, I think Zach Ertz being drafted in the 8th, he's being slept on for what he's going to be capable of. So don't sleep on Zach Ertz.
Right, and I'm loving Zach Ertz this year especially. I really do think that the likelihood for Zach Ertz to finish, especially like we said on the aforementioned draft or pass series when John brought up Zach Ertz, is that DeAndre Hopkins is gone. And outside of Rondale Moore, which I'm very confident in Rondale Moore, we'll talk about that more on the NFC West show. It's so thin over there that you really don't know who to trust or whatever, and you can kind of see in Zach Ertz's game, when he plays, that it's almost a revitalization of him kind of being the guy, whereas, he had done so much for Philadelphia, and for him to kind of get shouldered out by Dallas Goedert the way he did, I could see that, Arizona becomes almost this, breath of fresh air where he gets to restart and rebuild. He gets the contract for it. They want him to be the guy. So I'm definitely in camp with John here. That draft price is too delicious, and he has the chance to return double-digit touchdowns, which not a lot of tight ends have the chance to do. So I think, John, you, me agree here that he's probably going to get off to a hot start and keep it going, and he's going to be extremely undervalued and return that great value where every single week that you have the potential for a touchdown, and you feel pretty good about starting him. So I agree with you. I think the Zach Ertz one is a great one to throw in there. Alrighty, moving on to my first one. Now this one might not be a sleeper. I get it, and I've been talking about him all off season, and I get that he's pretty high up there. He's going currently in like the 5th or 6th round, depending on your league size, but me personally, I just got to keep kicking the wheels on saying how great I believe that this player will be, and how I do basically can guarantee that he's going to finish top 5 in tight end and has the chance to finish within the top 3 and maybe even bully out Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce for the number 1 spot. And I know that's been hard to do the last couple of years, but that's why I'm so ecstatic about this one tight end in particular. I am very, very, very excited for Dallas Cowboys tight end Dalton Schultz. He finished last season as the tight end 3. Like we said on the Draft or Pass show, Amari is gone. Cedric Wilson is gone. James Washington's out for a while. They cut Blake Jarwin, and they've been waiting for somebody to have this connection at tight end with Dak. The connection is already there. So aside from CeeDee, there's really nobody else to go to. The upside for him to inherit the work that has been kind of vacated is absolutely immense. It's the same thing for him basically as it is CeeDee. Now this, the love for CeeDee and, me having him at number 1 overall, I just think the talent's there for CeeDee, and the number 1 scoring offense being the Dallas Cowboys isn't really going to change much. I do believe that they're going to score a ton of points this season. I believe that their team is going to be, they're going to have their struggles, but they're going to rely heavily on the players that they have connection with, that Dak has connection with. So I do believe in the early stages of the season, while they're getting things rolling, it might not be the most hot start for Dalton Schultz, but I do think it'll be an effective start for him and CeeDee, and they will have their touchdowns, they will have their points. But I think by the end of the season, Dalton Schultz and CeeDee are just putting up massive numbers every single week as basically the go-to targets outside of the running game. So I do believe, obviously, Tony Pollard, we talked about it a little bit about how he might be moving into the slot. I think that's a great likelihood that happens because they really haven't made any other moves for a receiver, and it seems like they want to trust the people who they have on the roster, which I love. But I do believe that a lot of these chances that we're looking at for CeeDee, the same also goes for Dalton Schultz, and he's going to get a ton of red zone works, also putting him into the potential, like we were talking about with Zach Ertz, that he's going to have double-digit touchdown totals. And now if that's the case where you have double-digit touchdown totals, you're rivaling the top 2 tight ends, in the league, and you're going to have that appeal every single year if you're putting up those kind of numbers. So I do believe Dalton Schultz has that ability. And as much as I like to say he has that ability to kind of play it conservative, I'm all in on Dalton Schultz. I think it is absolutely inevitable that he becomes that player. So over the moon about Dalton Schultz that I am. John Landry, how do you feel about Dalton Schultz before you get into your next tight end?
There's really not much more to say about Dalton Schultz. He's going right now at 602. So if you set yourself up with 5 great picks, do not pass on Dalton Schultz. I mean, you're gonna kick yourself in the ass.
Right, and right after that, I believe it's what Hawkinson and I think Hawkinson's like right after him. I don't have my sheet up right now, but I believe it's Hawkinson right after him, and there's one other who is kind of in consideration there. But I think the gap between those other ones that come off of right behind him, it's massive. I think the difference between Hawkinson and Dalton Schultz is, light years apart. Dalton Schultz you could basically consider a receiver, whereas Hawkinson is just a tight end that you feel confident in starting every week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they're 2 or 3 picks apart, so...
Yeah, not close to me.
Yeah, so next up, I wanna talk about what really could be a sleeper, just based off his last 2 years. So 3 years ago, this tight end was, I think he finished 9th, and he was kind of desirable. He wasn't obviously a top tier echelon, but he had some ups and downs that is good for most tight ends. A lot of tight ends have just really flatline numbers, which we're trying to avoid. So, 2018, he was PPR 9. 2019, he broke his wrist, so he had bad numbers. And then 2020 and 21, he was basically second string on his team, so he was quiet. And that is David Najoku, tight end for the Browns, currently going mid-15th round. So he is free in your draft. You can draft your entire team and then pick this guy up with your last pick. And that's going to be okay, because here's how I feel about him. He is a natural athlete. He's tall, he's athletic, he's quick, he can catch the ball, he can move. The Browns have just let Austin Hoover go, who was the main focus of for the Browns tight end, and they gave him a almost a $55 million contract. He is the 5th highest paid tight end right now. He is going to receive the workload. He's only competing with Amari Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones for targets, not including the backfield, because who knows what Hunt's going to be right now. He really doesn't have that much competition for targets, and if Watson plays the season, he's gonna pepper Najoku for he's just gonna give him his work. So there's no reason to believe that he cannot finish well above his ADP. I'm not saying top 10. He might not be top 10, but he's definitely not gonna come in at 21. So with a contract like that, the former tight end one disappearing and his actual natural talent, he is a sleeper to me.
Yeah, and I'm looking up right now the stats that Desean Watson had with the Houston Texans tight ends back when he actually played in 2020, and it was kind of all over the place in Jordan Akins and Pharaoh Brown and Kyle Warning. I think it was Kyle, but it's difficult to kind of go back and forth on these players for tight end, but I do believe in the upside because of Desean Watson and the fact that David Najoku is going that late. You can't forget the key addition or the key upside that Desean Watson brings to the Cleveland Browns in comparison to what Baker Mayfield brought to the Browns. So I do love the pick, especially with his ADP mid-15th. This is a free player. This is a player that you can pick up, put on your bench, and have him sit there and see what happens for 2 or 3 weeks. And if you don't like it, you drop him, and it doesn't feel bad. But as John, kind of outlined for you, the path is there for David Najoku. They want him to be the guy. They want him to be part of this offense. They're not looking at him as just a filler player who's kind of just sitting there. He is a key asset to this team, and they want him to be, involved. So he does have a chance to kind of return a ton of value here once Desean Watson gets on the field and gets rolling. So it's tough to look at Cleveland and say, okay, cool, there's players that I want here, but you got to remember that Desean Watson's probably going to be that quarterback week 1. So if Amari Cooper and David Najoku are the lead guys there, it's going to be kind of like what we were talking about with Dallas, where Dallas and Arizona, when you're depleted at other areas, you got to make something work, and David Najoku definitely has the talent to do so. Alrighty, so let me go back to my slide here. We got 2 left each, and let me move on to my second tight end. And the reason that I am picking this player, it's simple. Before I even get into my argument, it's location, location, location. My second tight end sleeper for the 2022 season is Dawson Knox, tight end for Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. He is hanging out with some great company in one of the best offenses that will probably at the end of this season rival the Dallas Cowboys or beat them out in being the number 1 scoring offense. So when it comes to teams that I have really followed closely for the past 3 or 4 years, Buffalo's definitely been up there. They've made nothing but changes that I've been kind of over the moon about since they started with the Sean McDermott era. So I'm really excited to see how this team keeps progressing year over year. And one of the players that I'm really excited to watch develop into that team is Dawson Knox. We talked a lot about Gabe Davis, but you got to give some love to the tight end role. Now, Knox played 15 games last year, but he finished at the tight end 8 due to his 9 touchdowns that we have. So we have talked about already a couple times about how those double-digit touchdowns will absolutely excel a tight end into being a tight end 1, tight end 2, tight end 3, whatever it may be. So the touchdowns really can make or break a tight end position, and I think that Dawson Knox has the potential to be one of the more targeted red zone targets this year for Josh Allen because we have seen it in the past already. Now, there are going to be down games, and I understand that when going into this with Dawson Knox. I understand there's going to be games that will be down. I'm not going to feel great about that, but he wasn't one of the more heavily targeted tight ends for the entire season of last year, but going into his 4th season, I do think that's going to change, especially when you look at team structure, especially the way that you look at the way that Buffalo is developing. I think the opportunities for him are inevitably going to be increasing. He's going to be a lot more involved. They want him to be that tight end for the team. He had almost a 100% snap count by the end of the season, and he was averaging 5 targets from week 11 on. So his second half of the season did get a lot stronger and a lot more consistent when it came to Josh Allen looking his way. So I was very excited to see that as the year progressed. And as much as 5 targets isn't, amazing, what we're looking at for is the promise of utilization and the fact that it will increase from there. And I think Dawson Knox, throughout everybody in the tight end pool, like we said, it's very thin. He shows the promise of improving and being a more involved player. Like I said, he's the clear-cut tight end 1 for Josh Allen on a team that is basically pass only. You can give them James Cook, you can give them Dalvin Cook. Josh Allen is still going to heave that ball a ton of times during the game. And when you have a big body tight end like Dawson Knox who can really control the red zone, really control the inside, I think he's going to be a really effective weapon for Josh Allen that we're going to see emerge this season where, I really like Gabriel Davis. Obviously, Stephon Diggs is a powerhouse, but I think between Gabriel Davis and Dawson Knox, we're going to have a lot of fantasy value on this team this year, and it's going to be points basically galore. And you're going to be able to feel confident in basically all 3 of those guys that you grab. So, big fan of Dawson Knox this year. I definitely think where he is going, I'm willing to draft him. He is going a lot later on than I think he was going at round 9, I believe it was. I think he was going at 106 or something like that. But he has a ton of appeal to end up as that receiver that tight end who has double-digit touchdowns at the end of the season. So, John Landry, how do you feel about Dawson Knox before you move on to your next one?
I like Dawson Knox for 2 reasons. One, because it's on Buffalo. So Allen's his QB, tons of passes coming out of Buffalo. And second, he's a goal line focus. I bet you if I were to look up his 9 touchdowns, they were almost all red zone touchdowns. So I definitely want a player who's gonna get targeted in the red zone, because those extra, depending on your league style, those extra 6 points, that can win you a week. So I'm definitely down on Dawson Knox. I think he's going ADP 93, so he's going right before Zach Ertz. Literally the pick before Zach Ertz. So it's a toss-up between the 2.
Yeah, to be honest, I think I would I think I'd probably lean Zach Ertz there myself, just because of the necessity. You know, we talked about it a lot last year of the rule of necessity. When a quarterback needs something, when a team needs something, you know, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So I think there I'd have to go with Zach Ertz.
Well, you might get
staring them two down.
You might get a player who's smart enough to draft them up one, so you might be left with that Dawson Knox.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. All right, so I want to bring up my last tight end, and honestly, this is about as deep as a sleeper as I could think of. I mean, there's technically 32 tight ends, and I'm not picking the 32nd, but I'm picking what could be considered like the 32nd tight end just because of the team he played on and how inefficient their offensive was last year. So my third tight end, Kolkamet for Chicago. Chicago last year was not a good team. They were 27th in points per game, 24th in total yards, 23rd in pass attempts, 30th in passing yards, and 29th in passing touchdowns. And they did not even get their 10th passing touchdown until the month of December. That's 3 seasons of football that had already passed before they get their 10th passing touchdown. Now, the upside in all that is Andy Dalton, gone. Nick Foles, gone. It's all Justin Fields now. And Justin Fields is clearly a better passing back than either of the two combined. Now, granted, Nick Foles was MVP of a Super Bowl, but that's another story. So, entering into this season, Chicago has a 31st ranked O-line, according to Pro Football Focus. So, that tells me that the goal line work is not going to be given to the backfield. Dave Montgomery, he's a stud. Khalil Herbert, he did well when Montgomery wasn't there. But I know that if Fields isn't taking it for himself, he's going to be passing. So when it comes to who he can pass to, he's got Mooney, and that's really it. I mean, that's the star of the passing game is Darnell Mooney. I see that Moore was injured. Tight end Jimmy Graham is gone, so those are targets allocated out. Matt Nagy's gone. That's probably the best part about all of this. So I mean, he has a great chance for positive regression. His stats in 2020 compared to 2021 literally doubled in targets, in receptions, almost tripled in yards. Granted, he didn't get any touchdowns because Jimmy Graham seemed to have been the goal line tight end. Jimmy Graham's not there anymore. So the opportunity that Kolkamet is going to get is excellent. And let me just end off on this part. I was trying to dig through each tight end, and it got a little tedious, but Kolkamet is 6'6", 260. From what I saw, he's the biggest tight end. So he's definitely going to be a force when it comes down to that goal line. So I'm glad going out. I believe what I have written here is ADP 116. It changes every day. That's mid-10th round. I think he could be a sleeper this year. I think that Fields will be able to bring Chicago somewhere. And hopefully Kolkamet's a beneficiary of that.
I think the only thing holding certain players like Kolkamet back to at a certain point too becomes their touchdown potential. So it's almost like we keep, kind of pushing on this, touchdown potential, narrative throughout the offseason, but it really does become that, especially with players like this, because 1 or 2 touchdowns can jump you from tight end 8 to tight end, 6 or whatever it may be. So Kolkamet, I like it. Like you said, we're analyzing a place that is just so desperate for help and just so kind of in a drought of what they need at skill position, and for a team that has tried so long to get out of their own way. Kolkamet, like you said, he's massive. He's a big guy. He's born to play football, and he's a player who should absolutely be valued as one of those high ranked athletes when it comes to playing. So I do think that Justin Fields presents that opportunity for him. And Jakeem Grant also tore his Achilles today, we think it is. I don't think we've gotten the complete status on that yet, but I believe it was a torn Achilles. He's done for the season. So Kolkamet is, basically right behind Darnell Mooney in the same situation that, we had just talked about Zach Ertz and everybody else there. So, and Dalton Schultz. So, when you find these teams that are just depleted, you basically go for, who's going to be the next man up and who's going to be the squeaky wheel that gets the grease. So I do love the last pick for John in Kolkamet, and now it is time to get on to my last one, which I am very, very excited for because we have talked about him quite a bit. He is actually going as the pick right before, or the tight end pick right before Kolkamet going at 116 on my end, 107. My pick is going that, and that is tight end Mike Gaseki, Mike G, playing for the Miami Dolphins. And now I can understand why he's so low and why he's overlooked. He's going at the end of the 9th round, so that's kind of when people aren't really looking for tight ends. They're just saying, okay, cool, now I need a tight end, I guess, because I'll just throw him on my team and they'll forfeit whatever wide receiver or running back is there. So I understand why it's there and why it's happening, but it might not be a bad thing because I do believe that Mike G has a ton of upside. Now, last season he finished as the 9th tight end on the year. The steep drop-off for tight ends after 4 or 5, so that's why he looks so undesirable, and I get it because he hasn't been that great with Tua at all. So there's only been a few good games that you could grab. The Miami Dolphins, like I said, have just not been a good fantasy producing unit with Tua there, and it's taken a lot of things considered in order to get them even on our radar for this season. Obviously, Tyreke Hill does a lot for that, and including the Tyreke Hill would be the entire new team structure that they have. They have Cedric Wilson now, who is a great athlete. They have Jalen Waddle still. They have Tyreke Hill now, obviously. The team just traded at tight end Adam Shaheen 2 days ago. So the next tight end behind Mike G was Adam Shaheen. He's gone now. So the team kind of saying, hey, we can have Mike G be that guy. But they didn't pay him for it. So Adam Shaheen, Mike G does not get the full contract from the new regime. He only gets the franchise tag, but the camp reports coming out are that he is blocking a ton. So this new coaching regime doesn't seem to buy in completely to Mike G as an overall player and athlete. He might be able to catch, but I do believe that if people are reading into the reports saying he's going to become a run blocker, with all things considered and his, them giving him the franchise tag, what they're doing in practice, I do believe that they want him to be on the field a lot more often and being in every single down player, where we're not putting a tight end on the field who is just playing for the run blocker, just playing for the pass block, and then pulling him out when we need the pass catching tight end to come in, because we can't do anything on defense with that. That's why people like Gronk are so powerful, because every single play they can, kind of run that fake run block and then go out for that little 5-yard route, hit them, and then they can take the ball an extra 10 yards. So, me personally, when it comes to what I'm rated into on this team and what the reports are coming out, I think Mike G could greatly benefit from being on the field and being a pass catcher, run blocker at the same exact time. In 2021, he had an average snap percentage of 71%. If his snap percentage is just 98%, where it should be, I think it puts Mike G in direct line of that opportunity to be in the tight end top tight end conversation, because he's going to have more opportunity. It's not going to be so solidified where he's just out there running and every defense knows that he's running. Now they have Tyreke Hill. They still have Jalen Waddle. Maybe if Cedric Wilson's in the slot, that's a very, very insane offensive unit. And if we want to throw shade at Tua for saying, hey, you can't throw deep balls, okay, well, who's going to be running the insides and seam routes? It's going to be Mike Gaseki. And if Mike Gaseki's running those, he's probably going to get a little bit of Travis Kelce treatment in the fact that, Tyreke Hill's taking off the big coverage. He's pushing the defense back a little bit more to open up that inside, to open up, just in between the numbers in the middle of the field for Tua. And I think he could really feast for Tua. He could be probably Tua's number one target by the end of the season, and there's a chance, there's a reality that is the case. So I'm very excited for Mike G. I'm very excited for the possibility that somebody going in the 9th round, basically after every tight end that is gone, he has the potential to be somebody who gets targeted a ton, and especially in the red zone if they're there. You can't go to Tyreke Hill every single time. And this running back backfield is kind of a, crapshoot right now. You have Raheem Mostert and Chase Edmonds, but there's not much trust in any of those guys, especially as a goal line back. So I do believe that this team is going to be pretty pass heavy. They're going to force Tua to throw the ball a lot. And I do think that Mike G is going to get a lot of that. Tua is going to panic or whatever. I don't think he's going to kill it with Tyreke Hill. I think Tyreke Hill is going to get his, but I think Tua is going to take the open, kind of receivers. And, Chase Edmonds or Raheem Mostert, whoever's the starter, I believe it'll be Raheem Mostert, they're going to get a lot of points too because they're going to get a ton of dump off. So I'm liking that for Mike G. Love his potential for the season. John, before we close out the show, how do you feel about Mike G?
I want to give you a little piece of interesting information that I found out about Mike G. 8 tight ends ran at least 75% of their routes from the slot or out wide in 2021 with a minimum of 100 routes. And Mike Gaseki was at the top of that list with 92% of his routes were from the slot or out wide.
Right, so so they were using him crazy now as friggin', the almost secondary pass catcher, because all they had was Jalen Waddle. So they trust, or they know, it's a new regime now, but the team structure knows, and the head coaching staff, the coaching staff aforementioned, they knew that he has that ability. So I think the staff coming in knows he has that ability, but if he can't pass or run block, they're not going to be too excited about that. They need him to be on the field for every single play. So I'm really digging the fact that he's going to be on the field a lot more, and especially if that, that combination of him being able to move from inside to outside, kind of catches up. Mike G's going to be a stud, man. He's going to be a superstar. So my 3 tight end sleepers for the season are Dalton Schultz, who we talked about a lot. We will continue to talk about a lot. Dawson Knox, who I'm a big fan of in Buffalo with Josh Allen. And Mike G, who I think is going to benefit a lot from being on the field a lot more. John Landry, who do you got for your 3?
Zach Ertz, Kolkamet, David Najoku.
I like it. I really like that Zach Ertz one too. I think that's one that not a lot of people are going to grab. It's not the big, flashy, showy name. It's kind of just the mid-tier name. But I think next year a lot of people are going to be kicking themselves for not grabbing that Zach Ertz when they can. I think his value right now is tremendous. So, John, my brother, another fun show with you here covering some tight ends. We will be back tomorrow with the quarterbacks, and then we got a fun show for you coming this weekend, and that will be the beginner's guide for anybody who's kind of just new to this. We're going to tell you all the stuff that comes as muscle memory to us, maybe throw in a little bit of verbiage and how to pronounce things, how to say things, what things mean. You hear us say ADP all the time, maybe you don't know. That means average draft position. So we may throw a bunch of stuff up on there for you guys. Check out that show, maybe a little bit of the strategies that we take for granted. And maybe if you're a seasoned, fantasy football player, maybe even there's some stuff on there that will tell you that even you didn't think about it before. So thank y'all so much for tuning in again to Fantasy Daily. We will be back tomorrow. John Landry, thank you so much for being here. Thank y'all so much. Take care. Good night.